There is a subtle shift that happens when a man stops merely liking a woman and begins to feel something deeper, something that roots itself quietly inside him. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't arrive with grand declarations. Instead, it moves inward first, into his behavior, his attention, his inner world. You may sense it before he ever says a word. Suddenly, his presence feels different, more grounded, more intentional. He doesn't drift in and out anymore. He arrives. When he looks at you, there is less performance and more sincerity, as if something in him has decided to stay instead of wander. This is often the first sign of deep attachment, consistency without pressure, effort without calculation. As Carl Jung once observed, the psyche reveals truth through actions long before the conscious mind is ready to confess it. A man may not yet name his feelings, but his unconscious already knows. And it shows in how he remembers small details you never asked him to remember, in how your emotional state begins to matter to him as much as his own. When his feelings become serious, he no longer experiences you as an option, but as a reference point. He checks in, not out of obligation, but because your absence creates a quiet disturbance inside him. Your moods affect his inner balance. Your silence makes him reflective rather than indifferent. This is not dependency. It is attachment forming at a mature level. You'll notice that he begins to regulate himself around you. His words become more thoughtful. His reactions soften. He is less reactive, more present. This is especially telling, because a man only does this when he fears losing emotional harmony with someone who has become important to him. Another powerful sign is how time changes. He doesn't rush you, but he also doesn't disappear. He naturally weaves you into his rhythm, not by force, but by desire. Plans start extending into the future without discomfort. He speaks in we, not as a tactic, but as a reflex. In Jungian terms, this is the moment when a woman moves from being an external attraction to becoming part of a man's inner landscape. She is no longer just someone he wants. She is someone who affects who he is. And when that happens, detachment becomes impossible without inner loss. This is only the beginning. Because when emotional attachment deepens, behavior follows, unmistakably, quietly, and with growing gravity. There is another quiet transformation that reveals deep attachment, the moment his attention no longer scatters. He may still live his life, pursue his goals, move through his routines, but something changes in how focused he becomes when it comes to you. You are no longer competing with distractions. You are integrated. A man who is not emotionally attached can be present without being invested. But when attachment forms, his attention gains weight. He listens differently, not to respond, not to impress, but to understand. He remembers the emotional tone behind your words, not just the content. He senses when something is off, even when you say you're fine. This is because emotional attachment shifts his internal priorities. Your inner world begins to matter. Your reactions register. Your comfort becomes something he wants to protect, not because you asked him to, but because causing you discomfort now creates discomfort in him. You'll notice that he becomes more emotionally predictable, not boring, but reliable. He doesn't test limits as often. He doesn't disappear to provoke desire. Those behaviors fade when a man becomes attached, because his nervous system no longer seeks stimulation, it seeks stability. In Jung's view, this is the psyche choosing connection over conquest. When a man is unattached, he operates from impulse. When attachment forms, he operates from meaning, and meaning requires care. Another sign appears in moments of tension. Instead of withdrawing, he stays engaged. He may struggle, hesitate, or need time, but he does not detach. He wants resolution, not escape. This alone tells you that his feelings have crossed a line. Walking away no longer feels neutral to him. He also begins to mirror you emotionally. Your calm calms him. Your sadness slows him down. Your joy energizes him. This mirroring is not imitation, it is resonance. It happens when someone has allowed another person into their emotional core. And perhaps the most revealing shift of all, he stops trying to control how you see him. Instead, he becomes more himself. Less performance, less posturing, more truth. A man only allows this level of exposure when attachment feels safer than distance. This stage is fragile but powerful, because once a man anchors his attention emotionally, he is no longer free in the way he once was. Not trapped, but connected. And connection, once established, always leaves a mark. What follows next is even deeper, because attachment doesn't just change how he behaves with you. It changes how he sees himself. There comes a deeper shift, quieter than attention, more intimate than consistency. The moment a man starts to reflect on himself because of you. This is not about pleasing you. It is about awareness awakening inside him. When his feelings become serious, you become a mirror. Not a flattering one, not a demanding one, but an honest presence that makes him more conscious of who he is and who he is becoming. He begins to notice his own patterns, his tone, his emotional limits, his fears, and instead of defending them, he starts questioning them. You may hear it in subtle phrases. I've never thought about it that way. I didn't realize I do that. I want to be better at this. These are not empty words. They are signs of inner movement. A man does not self-reflect for someone he plans to lose. He only does this when the bond feels meaningful enough to grow within. As Jung explained, real connection activates individuation, the process of becoming more whole. And when you trigger that process, you are no longer just part of his life. You are part of his inner evolution. Another clear sign appears in how he handles vulnerability. He no longer keeps everything polished. He allows uncertainty to show. He admits confusion instead of hiding behind confidence. This is significant because emotional exposure is risky, and men only take that risk when attachment feels safer than distance. You may also notice that he begins to care how his actions affect your emotional state. Not in a fearful way, not in a controlled way, but in a conscientious way. He pauses before speaking. He chooses his words with more care. He corrects himself without being asked. This is especially important. He starts to self-regulate, not because you demand it, but because your presence has become emotionally relevant. Causing harm to the connection now feels like harming something valuable inside himself. There is also a shift in pride. He no longer needs to prove strength through detachment. Instead, strength becomes reliability. He feels more masculine not by withdrawing, but by being steady, by staying, by showing up emotionally even when it's uncomfortable. This stage is where attachment deepens into seriousness. Because now, losing you would not just mean missing you. It would mean losing a version of himself that only exists with you. And once a man reaches this point, the bond stops being casual forever. What comes next is unmistakable, because attachment begins to show not just in emotions, but in protection. There is a moment when emotional attachment crosses into something unmistakable, when his instinct shifts from observation to protection. Not control, not jealousy, but a quiet, grounded sense of responsibility for your emotional and psychological well-being. You will feel it in small, almost invisible ways. He becomes attentive to your boundaries, not because you insisted on them, but because crossing them now feels wrong to him. He notices when you are tired, overwhelmed, or emotionally withdrawn, and instead of taking it personally, he adjusts. He gives space when space is needed, support when support is needed, presence without pressure. This is a powerful sign, because men do not protect what they are not attached to. Protection arises when something is perceived as valuable, and value is always emotional before it becomes behavioral. You may notice that he becomes subtly territorial, not possessive, but discerning. He pays attention to who influences you, who drains you, who disrespects you, not to control your world, but because your emotional environment now matters to him. Your peace becomes something he wants to preserve. In Jungian psychology, This is where attachment activates the archetype of the guardian. When a man feels deeply connected, his unconscious shifts from self-centered desire to relational responsibility. He no longer experiences you as separate from his inner stability. Another revealing sign appears when others cross a line. He doesn't stay silent. He doesn't laugh it off. He intervenes calmly, firmly, without drama. Because when a man is emotionally attached, disrespect toward you feels personal, not as an insult to his ego, but as a threat to the bond. You'll also notice how he positions you socially. He doesn't hide you. He doesn't compartmentalize you. He naturally integrates you into his world, conversations, decisions, long-term considerations. Not because he is trying to prove anything, but because excluding you no longer feels natural. Perhaps most telling is how he responds when you are vulnerable. Instead of withdrawing or fixing, he stays. He listens without rushing. He doesn't minimize your emotions. He doesn't escape discomfort. A man only does this when attachment has softened his defenses. As Carl Jung noted, love transforms instinct into meaning. Protection, at this level, is not about strength, it is about presence. It is the quiet understanding that harming you would harm something sacred inside himself. And when a man reaches this stage, his feelings are no longer tentative. They are rooted. What follows next is even more profound, because protection eventually leads to commitment, not as a promise, but as an inner decision he can no longer avoid. There is a stage where a man no longer wonders whether he feels deeply. He simply begins to act as if the bond is already real. This is where attachment turns into commitment, not spoken yet, but internally settled. You can feel it in how he plans. He doesn't hesitate when the future enters the conversation. Not because he has every answer, but because imagining you there no longer feels foreign. He includes you instinctively. Next month, next season, next stage. Not as a fantasy, but as a continuity. And continuity is one of the clearest signs that his feelings have stabilized into seriousness. At this point, he no longer treats the connection as something fragile that might disappear tomorrow. Instead, he treats it as something worth investing in. Time, energy, emotional presence. He is willing to adjust his life, not sacrifice himself, but rearrange priorities, because the bond now carries weight. In Jungian terms, this is when attachment moves from projection to integration. You are no longer an ideal he chases, but a reality he chooses. And choice is always more powerful than desire. You'll notice that he becomes more decisive around you. Less ambiguity, less mixed signals. Not because he is trying to reassure you, but because uncertainty now feels dishonest to himself. When a man is deeply attached, leading you on creates inner conflict, and most men avoid what destabilizes their inner order. Another sign emerges in how he handles conflict. He doesn't threaten distance. He doesn't use withdrawal as leverage. He stays engaged, even when it's uncomfortable, because leaving would mean abandoning something that matters. This is crucial. A man who is not attached can walk away to regain control. A man who is attached stays to preserve meaning. He also begins to take responsibility for the emotional tone between you. If something feels off, he notices. If there is tension, he wants clarity. Not perfection, clarity. Because unresolved distance now weighs on him. As Carl Jung believed, commitment arises when the psyche accepts that growth happens through relationship, not avoidance. And this acceptance changes a man profoundly. Perhaps the most revealing sign of all is this. He no longer keeps one foot out the door, not because he feels trapped, but because leaving no longer feels like freedom. And when a man reaches this point, his attachment is no longer forming. It is already established. What comes next is unmistakable, because once commitment settles inside him, he begins to prioritize you in ways that cannot be faked. There is a moment when you stop wondering where you stand, not because he explains it, but because his behavior makes it obvious. This is when emotional attachment becomes visible through priority. A man who is deeply attached does not fit you into his life. He makes space for you in it. You feel it in how he manages time. Not dramatically, not performatively, but deliberately. He shows up when it matters. He follows through. He doesn't leave important moments to chance. Even when life is busy, your place remains protected. Not because you demanded it, but because neglecting you would feel like neglecting something essential. This is an important distinction. Men who are not serious prioritize convenience. Men who are emotionally attached prioritize connection. You may notice that he starts anticipating your needs rather than reacting to them. He checks in before you ask. He considers how decisions will affect you. He adjusts plans instinctively, without resentment. This is not loss of freedom, it is alignment. In Jung's view, love reaches maturity when the ego stops acting alone and begins to include the other in its inner calculations. And that is exactly what happens here. You are no longer external to his decision-making, you are part of it. Another clear sign appears when choices must be made. When something competes for his attention, you are not pushed aside. You are considered. And consideration is the language of priority. He may not always choose perfectly, but he chooses consciously. You'll also notice that he no longer leaves emotional loose ends. He doesn't disappear after closeness. He doesn't create distance after intimacy. Those patterns fade because emotional inconsistency now feels destabilizing to him. He wants continuity, not intensity followed by absence. Perhaps the most telling sign is how calm he becomes about you. Not indifferent, calm. There is less tension, less guessing, less emotional turbulence. This calm comes from internal certainty. He knows where he stands. And because he knows, you feel safer too. A man who has not formed attachment fears obligation. A man who has formed attachment fears disconnection. And when priority becomes natural rather than negotiated, you are no longer waiting to be chosen. You already have been. What comes next goes even deeper, because once a woman becomes a priority, she also becomes emotionally irreplaceable. There is a point where attachment reaches a depth that cannot be imitated, replaced, or replicated. This is the moment when a man realizes, often without saying it out loud, that no one affects him the way you do. You are no longer interchangeable. He may meet other people, talk to others, move through the world as before, but something inside him has shifted permanently. Conversations feel flatter elsewhere. Emotional resonance feels muted. The unique emotional language the two of you share cannot be recreated, and he knows it. This is because deep attachment rewires emotional reference points. Your reactions, your presence, your way of understanding him become the internal standard. And once that standard is set, comparison is inevitable and always disappointing. You'll notice that he begins to seek you specifically during moments of stress, uncertainty, or quiet reflection. Not because you solve everything, but because being understood by you brings psychological relief. Your voice calms him. Your perspective steadies him. Your presence restores him. In Jungian psychology, this is the moment when projection dissolves and genuine bond remains. The anima, the inner feminine image, stops being an abstract ideal and becomes embodied in one real woman. And once this happens, detachment becomes deeply unsettling. Another powerful sign appears in how he reacts to emotional distance. Even subtle shifts in your energy affect him. Your withdrawal does not provoke indifference, it provokes awareness. He senses when something is off and feels compelled to address it, because losing emotional contact now feels like losing orientation. You may also notice that he becomes protective of the bond itself. He avoids behaviors that could damage trust. He thinks before acting. He considers consequences, not out of fear, but out of respect. When attachment reaches this stage, reckless behavior feels self-destructive. Perhaps the clearest sign of emotional irreplaceability is this. He no longer imagines a future that makes sense without you in it. Not as fantasy, as emotional truth. And when a man reaches this point, his attachment is no longer something forming or growing. It has become part of his identity. What remains is the final shift, the deepest one of all, when attachment transforms into choice, devotion, and emotional permanence. There is a final inner shift that marks deep emotional attachment. The moment a man chooses you not out of impulse, fear, or desire, but out of clarity. This is no longer chemistry pulling him forward. It is awareness holding him in place. At this stage, he is no longer trying to figure out how he feels. He already knows, and knowing brings calm. You'll feel it in how steady he becomes. There is less emotional fluctuation, less uncertainty, less testing. He no longer needs reassurance to stay connected. His presence stabilizes because his inner decision has already been made. This is one of the most misunderstood signs of love. People mistake calm for fading interest, when in reality, calm is what arrives after emotional certainty. A man who is deeply attached no longer needs intensity to feel alive in the connection. He values depth over drama, continuity over excitement. He becomes emotionally economical, investing where it matters, withdrawing from what threatens the bond. You may notice that he begins to align his values more clearly with the relationship. His choices reflect consideration. His behavior reflects foresight. He thinks in terms of consequences, not because he is restricted, but because he is committed. Emotional maturity emerges naturally when attachment becomes conscious. As Carl Jung believed, love reaches its highest form when it becomes an act of will rather than a reaction of instinct. This is exactly what happens here. His feelings are no longer something that happened to him. They are something he stands behind. Another powerful sign is how he handles temptation. Not with fear, not with repression, but with indifference. When attachment is real, alternatives lose their shine. Not because they are forbidden, but because they are irrelevant. His emotional loyalty has already settled. Perhaps the most telling sign of all is this. He stops questioning whether you are the right one and starts asking how to protect what exists. This is not romantic fantasy. This is emotional permanence forming. And when a man reaches this stage, he is no longer attached only to you. He is attached to the life he is building with you. Only two final movements remain, and they reveal everything. There is a stage where attachment no longer needs explanation, labels, or reassurance. It simply shows itself, calmly, steadily, without urgency. This is when devotion appears, not as grand sacrifice, but as reliability. You feel it in how safe his presence becomes. He is no longer inconsistent. Not emotionally, not energetically. His words and actions align naturally. There is no longer a gap between what he says and what he does, because he is no longer negotiating with himself. Inner conflict has settled. A man who is deeply attached does not seek reassurance through attention elsewhere. He doesn't need to provoke reactions to feel desired. He already knows where he belongs emotionally, and this knowledge makes him calmer, more grounded, more emotionally generous. You'll notice that he begins to give without calculation. He helps without being asked. He supports without keeping score. His care is not transactional, it is relational. He doesn't ask, "What do I get?" He asks, "What maintains us?" This is one of the clearest signs of deep seriousness. He becomes invested in the health of the connection, not just the pleasure of it. In Jungian language, this is when the ego steps aside and allows relationship to become a container for growth. The man is no longer centered only on his needs, fears, or desires. He has expanded his inner world to include you, fully, consciously. Another powerful sign is how he handles your independence. He does not compete with it. He does not feel threatened by it. He respects it. Because true attachment does not seek possession, it seeks resonance. He wants you whole, not reduced. You may also notice that he becomes more patient, less reactive, more tolerant of complexity. This patience does not come from endurance, but from emotional security. He trusts the bond, and trust changes everything. Perhaps the most important shift of all is this. He no longer asks himself whether staying is worth it. Staying is already assumed. And when a man reaches this stage, what he feels is no longer a question of attachment. It is a choice renewed daily without effort. Only one final truth remains, the one that ties everything together. There is a final point where everything settles, not into certainty forced by words, but into knowing carried by the body. This is how you know his attachment is real. You stop questioning it. Not because he explained himself perfectly, not because he promised forever, but because your nervous system is no longer on alert. His presence feels steady, predictable in the healthiest way. You are not guessing where you stand. You are not decoding mixed signals. You are not preparing yourself for disappearance. The emotional ground beneath you feels solid, and that is never accidental. A man who is deeply attached does not make you feel anxious about love. He doesn't awaken survival instincts. He doesn't keep you emotionally suspended. Instead, he creates a quiet sense of arrival, as if something inside you can finally rest. You feel chosen without being chased, valued without being tested, held without being restricted. This is because his attachment has moved beyond emotion into identity. You are no longer something he feels. You are someone he includes himself around. His life makes sense with you in it. His decisions align. His energy stabilizes. As Carl Jung believed, the deepest bonds are those where the unconscious no longer resists, where inner conflict dissolves into coherence. And this coherence is exactly what you feel now. You notice that you don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to compete. You don't need to perform. You are simply met. And perhaps the most important realization of all emerges gently. A man who is deeply attached does not make you question your value. He confirms it by how peacefully you exist beside him. If you recognize this progression, if something resonated deeply, trust that awareness. Emotional truth is always felt before it is understood. And now you know.